Hi, folks. You're with us today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about how there's a lot of propaganda being put about it in Australia at the moment, and the business websites and business journals and any online business site are really pushing this hard that Australian women and Western women generally are more oppressed than they have ever been. They've got it rough. They are being raped in record numbers, brutalized, put upon, denied promotion, paid shit money. Men have got it like so easy in comparison. These hardworking genius women, hardworking geniuses, are being pushed away, kept in the sweeping the floor while these IQ minus 5 million men are just given these fancy jobs on big money, and so that's how it is. So women are more hard done by than they've ever been. Now, on top of being denied promotions and being paid crap money, they're being raped and brutalized. They're having their asses grabbed. It's a hell. It's a living hell for women in the workforce in the West. Now, some may say that Western women have got it better than they've ever had throughout human history, that they are the most pampered, the richest, the most well-off, the most protected women ever in human history. You would think that, but in fact, that's not true. No. They are the most oppressed, most brutalized and raped. It is a crying shame, I tell you. Now, the propaganda that's going around, and I saw one today, is that in every age group, millennials, baby boomers, you name it, in every age group, men are out earning women, that is, earn more than women by anywhere between 10 and even up to 20%. So now, what's this difference due to? Is it due to men working, harder jobs, or working longer hours, or riskier jobs, or working in areas where, say, performance bonuses are paid and things like that? Is it got anything to do with that? Absolutely not. The reason there is difference, the outcomes are different between the genders. The reason is fascism, misogyny, racism, sexism, fascism, Nazism. It's Hitler, and that's the reason. So, and your lying eyes may tell you, as I have, having been a manager in the corporate world, an executive in the corporate world for many years, my lying eyes kept telling me that on balance, men were far more reliable as employees than women. Now, that doesn't mean they weren't bright women. There were. It doesn't mean there weren't hardworking women. There were, just not as many as there were men. And so I found that if I wanted a reliable team, and pretty much any other manager, executive that I was knew would have said the same thing. If I wanted a reliable team, or the most reliable team I could get, this is, it's all relative at the end, then I had to have a higher proportion of men than women. Now, but that was my lying eyes telling me that, because in reality, that wasn't true. It was because there was a wicked, evil, misogynist, racism, fascism, Nazism coursing through my veins. And that's why I thought that and believed that, because the reality was women were far better than men, far morally superior, intellectually superior, all of the above. And just I didn't see it. Now, the difference, when there's a difference in outcome, there is never an analysis of why. Particularly not in the propaganda. Now, if you look at the government is putting out the propaganda, government, whether it be state or local or federal, they're really pushing this propaganda. The business websites are pushing the propaganda. Nearly all the various government departments, think tanks. It's a full-on assault. Just the same way as they create gender division, racial division, climate change, the whole thing. And it's all the big leading to this huge sort of Armageddon. Now, when you start to drill down and look at how they're putting the numbers together, so they know they're lying. They know that they're lying and putting out the most outrageous lies. But they just aggregate or add together that there's 1,000 women doing nursing, and there's 1,000 men who are doing high-risk merchant banking. So there's a difference in the wages or the pay between the two, and therefore it must be down to misogyny and fascism and so on. Now, you do the drill down, it's fairly obvious why there's a pay difference. Women do choose occupations where there is a much lower risk, where there's more meetings, more committees, more bureaucracies, more very very KPI, bureaucratic, intensive. Women tend to prefer those things and try and avoid the uncertainty, where the outcomes are uncertain and where performance is an issue and where they could be measured on the basis of pass or fail. Women tend to avoid those sort of occupations, and whereas men tend to gravitate towards them. Men are much more accepting of being judged on a pass or fail basis. Women not so much. So men go to tend to be drawn to these higher income roles, whereas women tend not to. Whereas men are less inclined to go towards the very regimented, bureaucratic, public service type roles. Not that men don't do it; they do, but there's a higher proportion of women going into those roles. Now, equally, it's the same for jobs where it's a 9 o'clock start. You get 45 minutes for lunch, and it's a 5 o'clock finish. My experience with female employees was that they would arrive at sort of 30 seconds to 9, and they'd be out the door at 30 seconds to 5. And so I would ask some of them that were, say reasonably proficient at various lower level jobs, which could be on the reception desk, for example. And I'd say, well, the company will give you training. Do you want to do this, or do you want to have a go at that? Do you want to maybe become move into the sales department or something of that nature? And most of the time, so sometimes I got a yes, but most of the time it'd be no. Why would I want to do that? Why would I want to, work long hours and have the stress and the worry and that sort of thing? I'd rather go home at 5 o'clock. So okay, well, fine. That's your choice. Similarly, I found that when they did accept a role in, for example, sales or something like that, they didn't like the performance measurement of it. Have you done your numbers, this week or this quarter and that sort of thing? They didn't like that, and they shied away from it. The being judged and being evaluated, they backed off from that. So, but by contrast, if you'd offer them a job in, which I did do sometimes, offer them a job in, say, marketing, where there's lots of meetings and lots of dyed blonde hair and lots of fussing and going around in circles and that sort of thing, then they did like that. And they would, once moved into that sort of department, they would seem to be quite happy there by comparison. But they weren't judged, and there was no strictly pass or fail. And I found any situation like that, they would accept it. Now, there's most of the, with very, very rare exception, nearly all the women are in executive roles today have been placed there through affirmative action and gender quotas. And there will be far fewer in those roles without the gender quotas and without the affirmative action. So women are being very, very, very well looked after in the Western world today, and there are millions are being gifted jobs that are well beyond their normal capacity to achieve on their own merits. So and we see this in the body politic as well. So this ridiculous carry on about women are the most oppressed and so on is just quite absurd. The other side of it is looking at the claims that women are more sexually harassed and raped than ever before, and citing a couple of examples. Now, there's only been a handful of examples in the whole of Australia, for example, over the last 10 years. So if it is widespread, then it's the most secretive widespread exercise in a long time. It just isn't widespread. That's the reality. And the bar for determining what sexual harassment is constantly being redefined and lowered. So to say a crass joke, for example, where a woman somewhere, many meters away who's not part of the conversation may overhear it. That's enough to be declared sexual harassment today. So on that basis, they can say sexual harassment is in every workplace, but the reality is, the sexual harassment of being actually sexually harassed or intimidated or so on. Now, I've spoken to I've worked with many women and spoken to them, and some of them have been quite attractive, and they don't seem to think that they were being sexually harassed at all. They may think of a very clumsy boss or supervisor, when they were sort of starting out, a very clumsy guy with limited social skills would try and hit on them. But that's more the youth and the clumsy social skills than anything else. But apart from that, not so. There are some women who've been able to trade sexual favours for financial rewards and so on. A lady that I knew quite well, and we'd worked as colleagues. I didn't think she was much good. I mean, she talked a good fight, but she was pretty lazy and incompetent at the end of the day. But she's reasonably attractive, quite diminutive, and she, the managing director, the president of the company had asked her to become sort of his mistress and wanted her to, dress up in leather and do all sorts of fantasy type things in return for some quite substantial financial reward. And she agreed to do that and did rather well out of it. She managed to buy quite a nice apartment out of out of that arrangement. So well done. But I haven't seen many women nor men for that matter, but I haven't seen many women who've achieved anything substantial in their own right. So this idea that these hardworking, super capable women are being held down and oppressed is utter, absolute nonsense. Are there some? Of course there are. Of course, on balance of probability, the population of millions upon millions, of course there are. Of course, there's going to be some hardworking ones, but and high achievers and bright, but just not very many. And compared to men, I would suggest there'd be maybe, for every 7 men that are capable, there'd be one woman. So I think it's approximately a ratio like that, or certainly by my experience. Also, having said that, women that I have promoted, perhaps because they've pestered me to get a promotion, and I thought, all right, then fine, I'm going to call your bluff. You think you're up to it, I'm just as good as any of those guys. If I had a penis, I'd already be the president of the company. Yeah, sure you would. And so they get the promotion or get moved into another area, and then they can't cut it, and so rather than accept they can't cut it, instead they cry, misogyny and patriarchy and all these sorts of things to try and bullshit their way out of the accountability. But I was always tough on that. No, you have to be accountable. And if you do the job, you get the promotion and the rewards, and that should come to anyone who does it. But if you don't, then that's the outcome, that you maybe had to be moved to another department. You've been a taskist today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.